He promised me forever, but behind my back, he built my prison. Ella stood at the edge of the balcony, staring out into the dimming sky. The world outside seemed to be quieting down, the chaos of the day fading into the calm of evening. Her hands rested lightly on the railing, but her mind was anything but still. She had built this life piece by piece, carefully crafted every moment with her husband, William. The home they shared, the laughter they once had, the promises whispered between them. It was all slipping through her fingers now. The cracks had begun to show, subtle at first, like the faintest crack in glass. But now the glass was shattering, and she didn't know how to stop it. The front door creaked open, the sound so familiar it should have been comforting. But tonight, it was a reminder that things had changed. William had been different for weeks now, distant, distracted, cold. She could feel it, deep in her chest, and it was suffocating her. "Hey, Ella!" William's voice drifted from the doorway. She didn't turn to look at him. She couldn't. Not yet. "Hi," she replied softly, her voice betraying nothing. She tried to push the tension out of her shoulders, to act like everything was fine. But her hands, resting on the balcony rail, were shaking. He stepped out onto the balcony beside her, too close but not close enough. She could feel the coldness between them, a wall he had built over time. His cologne was faint, the kind she always liked, but tonight it smelled wrong, like the remnants of something he was no longer willing to share. "What's going on?" she asked, the question hanging in the air between them. She wasn't sure if she was asking about the moment or everything that had led to it. William didn't answer right away. Instead, he let out a sigh, running his fingers through his hair as if the weight of the world was on his shoulders. He stood there for a moment, avoiding her eyes before speaking in a low, flat voice. "It's nothing, Ella," he said. "Just work. You know how it is." Ella's chest tightened at the lie. She had seen him like this too many times over the last few months. The distance, the excuses. He was becoming a stranger in their own home, and the more he pulled away, the more she felt the ice creeping into her heart. "Work?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Is that really all this is? Because I've been living in this house with a man who barely speaks to me, barely looks at me. And I don't think it's just work, William." Her voice cracked, the dam breaking for a moment, but she quickly regained control. "It's something else, isn't it?" He glanced at her, his jaw tightening. For a moment she thought she saw something flicker in his eyes, guilt maybe, or something darker. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared. "It's not what you think," he said, his voice colder than before. He turned away, walking back inside the house. "I'm tired, Ella. Let's just leave it, alone for tonight." Her breath caught in her throat. Leave it alone? How could she? How could she ignore the way he'd been treating her, the way everything had started to unravel? She couldn't just pretend anymore. Her feet moved before she even thought about it, following him inside. She found him in the living room, standing by the fireplace, his back to her. The flickering light of the fire cast long shadows across his face, making him look like a stranger. A stranger she used to know so well. "I don't want to leave it alone," Ella said, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. "I want to know what's really going on, William. I want you to tell me." He turned, his face a mask of frustration. "I've told you, Ella. Nothing's going on. You're imagining things." "Am I?" she shot back. "Because I'm not the one pulling away. I'm not the one coming home late and acting like everything's fine when I know it's not." She took a step closer, her heart pounding in her chest. "You've been seeing someone else, haven't you?" The words hung in the air, heavy and sharp. The silence that followed was thick, suffocating. William didn't move, didn't speak. His eyes flickered to the side, his hands balled into fists at his sides. Ella felt a sickening knot twist in her stomach. She had seen the signs, the small details, the late nights, the secretive phone calls, the way he looked at her like she was just another obstacle. But hearing him remain silent, it was the confirmation she had been dreading. "Tell me I'm wrong," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I didn't want to hurt you, Ella," he said, the words coming out in a low, almost apologetic tone. But it didn't feel like an apology. It felt like a justification. "It just happened. I never meant for this to happen." Ella's vision blurred, the world tilting around her. She took a step back, feeling the weight of his words crashing down on her. "You never meant to hurt me?" she repeated, the laughter in, her voice bitter. "You've been lying to me, William. This whole time, I've been standing by you, loving you, and you've been betraying me." "I didn't want to hurt you," he said again, but there was no conviction in his voice. Only a man trying to escape the consequences of his actions. Ella's anger flared, sharp and hot. "You don't get to say that." "Not anymore." She turned away from him, her breath shallow and quick, her chest tight. "You've shattered everything I thought I knew about us. About you." William moved toward her, but she held up a hand to stop him. Don't come near me." For a moment the house was silent, save for the crackling fire. She could feel the weight of his presence behind her, but she didn't turn around. She didn't need to see him. She knew what she needed to do next. She walked toward the door, her heart pounding in her chest. "I don't know who you are anymore," she said over her shoulder, the words cutting through the silence, "but I'm done. This is over." And just like that, the life they had built, the life she had trusted, the life she thought would never break, shattered. William didn't stop her. He didn't say anything else. Ella didn't wait to hear what he might say. She stepped out into the night, the cool air brushing against her skin as she walked away from the man who had once been her everything. She had nothing left now except one thing, the fury burning inside her, a fury that would drive her forward. And she would rebuild herself. She would rise again. This wasn't the end of her story, it was only the beginning. The room was dim, lit only by the faint glow of a single bedside lamp. Rain tapped softly against the window, a steady rhythm that usually lulled Ella to sleep. But tonight, the sound only made the silence between them louder. She turned a page in her book, pretending to read. But she hadn't absorbed a single word in the past 10 minutes. Her eyes flicked over to William, who sat across the room at the edge of the bed, scrolling through his phone with a clenched jaw and narrowed eyes. "You're quiet," she said, trying to sound casual. "Long day?" He didn't look up. "Yeah." Just one word. Flat. Heavy. Ella closed the book slowly. "Something wrong?" William finally glanced at her. His eyes didn't carry concern, just suspicion. Cold. Calculating. Like he was examining her instead of seeing her. "Who were you texting earlier?" he asked. The question came out too calmly, like he'd been practicing. It. Rehearsed. Not curious. Ella blinked, confused. "What?" "Earlier. On the patio," he said. "You smiled at your phone." Then locked it fast when I walked out. She stared at him, her mouth slightly open. "It was Mira." She sent a meme about her toddler biting the babysitter again. I laughed. "Want me to show you?" William leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped together. "No, just funny how guarded you've been with your phone lately." There it was. The shift. Not subtle. Not even hidden. "Guarded?" she echoed, her voice tightening. "You're the one who's been coming home late, William. Leaving early. Locking your office door like it's some war room." He scoffed and stood, pacing the room like he was trying to burn something off. "So we're doing that now? Turning this around on me?" "I'm not turning anything," she said, rising to her feet. "You asked a question, I answered it. But if we're playing suspicion games, let's talk about your Friday night client dinner. The one, where you came back smelling like roses and cheap champagne." William turned fast. "You're paranoid." Ella crossed her arms, steadying her breath. "Am I? Or are you just feeling guilty? A flash of something crossed his face, not fear, not shame, just anger. He stepped closer. "Let me ask you again. Who have you been talking to?" Ella stood her ground. "Why do you sound like you already think you know?" His lips curled into a slight smirk, but there was no humor in it. "Because your ex is back." In town, her stomach dropped. "I saw his name," William said, his voice low and sharp. "In your call logs. Twice. One on Tuesday. One today, Ella's breath caught. She had nothing to hide, at least she thought she didn't. But suddenly, her words felt dangerous. Any wrong move might ignite something she couldn't put out. "We ran into each other at the grocery store last week," she said carefully. "He said hi. I was polite, that's all. You picked up his call, twice, because I wasn't going to." "Be rude," she said, trying to stay calm. "He's not a threat, William." "It was harmless." "Harmless," he repeated with a dry laugh. "You think I'm stupid?" "No," she said quickly. "I think you're angry." And maybe a little scared. He stepped even closer. "Of what?" "Of you running back to someone who left you sobbing in the rain 5 years ago." Ella's voice dropped to a whisper. "No. Of the fact that someone might actually be willing to treat me better than you have lately." The silence that followed wasn't quiet, it buzzed like a live wire. William's jaw locked, his eyes flared. He looked like he might break something. "You want to talk about treatment?" he spat. "I gave you everything. This house, that car, every damn thing you asked for." "I never asked for silence," Ella said. "Or distance. Or cold eyes at dinner. I asked for you." He backed away, pacing again. "So that's it, huh? You miss being worshipped by someone who doesn't know the real you?" Her voice cracked. "You don't know me anymore." Either William grabbed his jacket from the chair, fists clenched tight around the fabric. "If I ever find out you've been with him." He paused, shaking his head. "God help you." Ella's face went pale. "What is that supposed to mean?" He walked toward the door but stopped, turning slightly, eyes dark. "It means I don't lose." "Not to him. Not to you. So whatever game you think you're playing, end it." And then he was gone. The door slammed hard enough to shake the walls. Ella stood there, arms limp by her sides, heart pounding. She wasn't sure what just broke, her trust, her fear, or the last thread holding their marriage together. She sat slowly on the edge of the bed, her hand resting on her phone. It buzzed. A single message. From Adrian. "Are you okay?" She stared at it, her thumb hovering above the screen. Her breath trembled. She hadn't replied to him earlier, not after the second call, not after the way he said her name like it still meant something. Now, everything felt different. William knew, he suspected, and he wasn't bluffing. But what he didn't know, what he'd never see coming, was that she wasn't afraid of him anymore. She opened the message thread, paused, then typed 3 simple words. "Can we talk?" Her thumb hovered over the send button for only a second. Then she pressed it. And everything started to change. The hotel bar was dimly lit, full of soft music, quiet voices, and the clink of expensive glasses. Ella sat in the corner booth, untouched wine in front of her, watching the swirl of strangers in evening clothes, pretending their lives weren't falling apart. She'd told herself it was just dinner, a business gala her husband had invited her to weeks ago. A chance to show face, to remind the world they were still the perfect couple. But something had felt wrong the moment she arrived. William wasn't there to greet her, not at the door, not at their reserved table. She asked a server where he might be, and the man hesitated, glanced toward the elevator, then offered a polite lie. "He's been delayed." She smiled and nodded, but her stomach tightened. Now, 30 minutes later, her fingers tapped lightly on the table as she stared at the hotel lobby across the bar. Her heart told her to go. Her pride told her to wait. And then, the elevator dinged. She froze. Out stepped William. He wasn't alone. The woman on his arm was young, too young to be anywhere near a private gala. She laughed at something he said, tossing her perfect, glossy hair back, her hand resting a little too easily on his chest. William smiled in a way he hadn't smiled at Ella in months. Ella's breath caught in her throat. Her hand gripped the edge of the table so tightly her knuckles turned white. The air around her seemed to thicken, as if the room was holding its breath along with her. They didn't see her at first. William was too busy playing the charming host, the confident man in control. But then his eyes scanned the room, and landed on hers. His body stiffened for a split second, just one. But she saw it. He quickly leaned down and whispered something into the woman's ear. She giggled, turned, and walked toward the bar like she didn't have a care in the world. William followed, not toward the woman, not toward the bar, but straight to Ella's table. "Ella," he said, voice calm, measured. "Didn't expect you so early." She looked up at him, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I'm right on time. You're the one who seems busy." He exhaled through his nose. "It's not what you think." She tilted her head. "No." "Then by all means, tell me what I'm seeing." He sat across from her, folding his hands on the table like this was a negotiation. "She's just a colleague." "From marketing." She wanted to see the hotel layout before the dinner. Ella's laugh was soft, sharp. "And her hand on your chest." Was that part of the layout tour too? William's jaw clenched. "You're making this bigger than it is." She leaned in, voice low. "You've been lying to me for weeks." "Don't insult me by pretending now." A flicker of irritation crossed his face. "You've been distant too, Ella." "Let's not act like everything was perfect." She blinked, stunned. "You're blaming me?" "I'm saying this marriage hasn't felt right in a long time," he said. "You're always suspicious." Cold. Obsessed with control, Ella's hands trembled beneath the table. "You cheated." He didn't deny it. The silence between them stretched, brittle and heavy. "Do you love her?" she asked. William looked away. "It's not about that." "That's not an answer." His voice dropped. "I don't know what I feel." Ella sat back, the ache in her chest turning into something colder, heavier. "I built a life with you. I trusted you with everything. My time, my body, my name." William reached for his glass, took a sip like this conversation was casual. "You think I didn't sacrifice too?" She stared at him, stunned at the arrogance in his tone. "You didn't sacrifice. You replaced me." For a moment something flickered in his eyes. Regret, maybe, or the faint echo of the man she once loved. But then it was gone, replaced by that same defensive calm. Ella stood, grabbing her clutch, every inch of her body shaking. "I'm not going to fight for someone who's already given up." William's eyes narrowed. "So what now? You just walk away?" She looked down at him, her voice steady. "No, I rise." She turned to go. And then she heard the woman laugh again, the one from the elevator. The girl William had lied about. Ella turned back, locking eyes with her husband one last time. "By the way," she said calmly, "I recognized her." William's brows drew together. "She's not in marketing," Ella said. "She used to be a hostess at that lounge you took me to once." "You even said she was too flirty." The colour drained from his face. Ella smiled, sharp and knowing. "I guess you've always had a type." She didn't wait for his reply. She walked out, heels clicking across the marble floor, heart cracked open but spine straight. Her world had just collapsed. But somewhere deep inside, something else stirred. Not rage, not grief. Something stronger. Something new. The bedroom lights were off, but the room wasn't dark. The city lights outside leaked through the half-closed curtains, painting soft, broken patterns across the wall. Ella lay curled on her side, facing the window, her back to the door. The sheets felt cold. So did the space beside her. Empty, untouched. William hadn't come to bed. Again. She stared at nothing, eyes wide, blinking slowly. Her chest felt tight, as if something inside her was folded wrong and wouldn't smooth out. She hadn't cried yet. Not since the hotel. Not since the girl. Not since the truth broke like a glass in her hands. But tonight, the silence was louder, and her strength was starting to crack. The door creaked open behind her. She didn't move. Footsteps. The scent of his cologne hit her before his voice did, still sharp, still expensive, still layered with the lie of affection. "You're still up," William said quietly. Ella didn't answer. He stepped further in, probably expecting her to respond, to turn around, to say something that would let him slip into bed and pretend this was still a marriage. She stayed still. He sat on the edge of the mattress. She felt the shift of weight beside her, the slight dip in the mattress as he leaned closer. "I've had a lot on my mind," he said. Still, she said nothing. William sighed. "You're angry." I get that Ella's fingers curled tighter into the sheets. Her voice, when it came, was small. "You lied." He didn't respond right away. She turned then, slow and deliberate, eyes locking onto his. "You didn't just make a mistake, William. You planned it. You hid it. And you smiled at me every day while doing it." His jaw flexed, but he said nothing. "I saw you," she whispered, "at that hotel." Holding her like I was nothing, he looked away. Ella sat up, the sheets falling from her shoulders. Her voice rose, sharp and trembling. "Do you even understand what that did to me? Standing there watching you laugh with her like our vows were nothing but a joke." William stood up, pacing slowly. "It didn't mean anything." She laughed, short and broken. "Don't insult me. Don't stand in my home, in my room, and tell me the woman whose lipstick was on your collar didn't mean anything." "I didn't plan for it to happen," he snapped. "But it did," she said. "And then it kept happening. That's the part you keep skipping." He rubbed his face with both hands, frustrated. "We've been off for a long time, Ella. You're always busy, distant, cold. Because I was holding everything together," she yelled, "while you drifted away behind closed doors." While you let me become invisible in my own marriage, William took a deep breath, then softened his tone. "I'm sorry." She stared at him. "You're not sorry. You're exposed." He stepped closer. "We can fix this." She stood, eyes blazing. "Fix what? Your image? Your reputation? Or your guilt?" He hesitated. "Ella, I still love you." Her voice cracked. "Then why did you break me?" He didn't answer. He couldn't. She walked past him, heading toward the door. "Where are you going?" he asked. She stopped, turning back. "To breathe." He moved toward her quickly. "Ella, don't," she warned, voice hard now. "You had choices. You made yours." He stepped back, hands slightly raised. "What do you want from me?" Her eyes, filled with tears, but they didn't fall yet. "I wanted you to come home. I wanted you to look at me and actually see me. I wanted to feel safe, loved, chosen." William's expression twisted. "I gave you everything." "No," she whispered. "You gave me silence. You gave me fear. You gave me nights alone in this bed, wondering why I wasn't enough." Finally, the tears came. She let them fall. "I was begging for your attention without saying a word," she said, "but you heard nothing. You saw nothing, because you stopped looking." He stepped forward again, more gently this time. "Let me make it right." She wiped her cheek, her voice low. "You can't unbreak what you shattered." William's mouth opened, but she cut him off. "I know about the apartment." He froze. She nodded slowly. "The one you've been paying for with the separate account. Her name is on the lease. Do you really think I wouldn't find out?" His face paled, all pretense gone. "Ella, you moved her into a space you were supposed to give me," she said, her voice shaking. "You told me you were building that place for our future." "I didn't mean for." "No," she snapped. "You meant every step. You just didn't think I'd find out." They stared at each other across the room, two strangers with history. The silence stretched. Ella's breath hitched as she steadied herself. "You didn't just betray me, William. You erased me." He stepped toward her, desperate. "Please don't leave." She opened the door. "You already did," she said, and walked out. The door shut softly behind her, but in her chest, something louder had cracked open, a scream no one else could hear, a storm she wouldn't run from anymore. And behind that door, William finally felt the weight of what he'd lost. The morning after the storm looked deceptively calm. Sunlight spilled across the kitchen counter, painting golden lines over the marble surface, but everything in Ella's chest felt hollow. The espresso machine hummed softly in the background, a ritual she hadn't broken in years. 2 shots, 1 sugar, no cream. But today, the cup sat untouched. Across the room, William was on the phone, pacing by the window like he hadn't destroyed her the night before. His tone was smooth, charming, professional, exactly how he sounded when he lied. "Yes, I'll review the final transfer today," he said, pausing to check his watch. "No, she has no idea." "I've kept it quiet." Ella blinked. He turned slightly, his back half to her, but she could still hear every word. "I'll have the papers signed before the weekend." She won't ask questions. She never does. Her breath caught. The spoon in her hand slipped into the sink with a soft clink, and William turned at the sound. His smile was immediate, polite, fake. "You're up early," he said, slipping the phone into his pocket like nothing had happened. Ella stared at him. "You were talking about me." He walked over, pressed a kiss to her cheek like it was still 2018, and grabbed the coffee she'd made without asking. "Work stuff," he said. "You know how these things go." Her jaw tightened, but she said nothing. Not yet. He sat at the dining table, scrolling his phone, the same hands that had touched another woman's waist, the same mouth that had whispered lies into both their ears. And now he was planning something else, something bigger. She sat across from him, watching every small movement. "Who are you talking to?" He didn't look up. "Legal. For what?" "Just restructuring some assets." "Which ones?" she asked, voice sharper now. William's gaze finally lifted to hers. "Don't do this." "I'm already doing it," she said. "Tell me what you're signing without me." He exhaled slowly, the fake patience melting. "It's not your concern. These accounts are under my name. This house is under my name. The company? My name is on all of it," she cut in. "From the day we built it." Together he leaned back, crossing his arms. "You really think I built any of this for us?" The words hit her like a slap. Her stomach twisted. "I gave you the illusion," he said, cool and calm like he was talking business. "The cars, the cards, the title of partner. But you've always been convenient, Ella. Not necessary." Her hands trembled. "Why are you doing this?" He shrugged. "Because I can. Because you're too emotional to make hard decisions. And because I needed someone who wouldn't ask questions." She blinked back, the sting in her eyes. "You used me. I built a name," he said. "And you were part of the packaging." She stood, heart pounding, blood rushing in her ears. "Is that what I am to you?" "Packaging?" He gave a cold, amused smile. "You were a good wife." "Until you weren't." Ella stared at him, her throat tight. Her mind reeled with everything she'd sacrificed, everything she had poured into this man. The sleepless nights, the polite smiles in rooms full of snakes, the quiet support behind every deal he closed. And he had replaced her like she was a piece of furniture gone out of style. Her voice was steady when she spoke. "You think I don't have power?" William raised a brow. "You don't." She nodded slowly. "Not yet." He laughed. "Don't embarrass yourself, Ella. You're not built for revenge. You cry when people raise their voice. You don't fight back." "I didn't," she agreed. "But now I will." He rolled his eyes and stood. "You want to play the game? Go ahead. Just remember, I've already won." He turned to walk away. I know about the Cayman account, she said. He stopped, mid-step. I know about the shell company and the forged signatures on the development contracts. You're not just cheating, William, you're laundering. He turned slowly, all colour drained from his face. I have everything, she said quietly. Emails, copies, voice recordings. You're bluffing. She reached into the drawer beside her and pulled out a single envelope. Set it on the table. Open it. He stared at it like it might explode. His fingers twitched, but he didn't move. Do it, she whispered. He stepped forward, slowly, carefully. Picked it up. Opened it. The documents inside were plain, black and white photocopies of transaction records, but each one bore his name, and each one proved he'd built his empire on a lie. His hand fell to his side. Where did you get these? She didn't answer, just watched him, his face twisted in rage. You were spying on me? No, she said. I was surviving you. They stood in silence, the truth finally bare between them. Ella walked to the door, pulled her coat from the hook. Where are you going? He asked, voice hoarse. She paused, hand on the doorknob. To keep a promise I made to myself the night you betrayed me, she said. To destroy the man who tried to erase me. And with that, she left. Not running, not crying, just walking forward for the first time with her eyes wide open. The sun had started to set, casting long shadows across the polished floor of the living room. Everything was still, too still. Ella sat on the edge of the couch, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Her phone lay screen down beside her, ignored for hours. The air in the room felt heavy, like something was waiting to happen. And deep down, she already knew it would. She had just come from her lawyer's office. It was supposed to be a routine meeting about freezing a few joint accounts she had helped build, fund, manage. But what she saw instead was a set of documents William had already signed, without her, transferring their shared assets, moving property titles, liquidating stocks, behind her back. Now she waited. The front door opened exactly at 6:17 p.m. On time, like always. William's routines were predictable, his betrayals were not. Hey, he called out, loosening his tie as he stepped in. You're home early. Ella stood slowly, like every movement carried weight. We need to talk. He looked up, paused, then gave a slight smile, the kind he used in meetings when someone was about to challenge him. That's serious? She didn't smile back. Sit down. William stepped forward but didn't sit. You okay? I went to the lawyer's today. That made him stop cold. David mentioned a few things, like how you signed property transfers without telling me, how you liquidated the summer house and moved funds into an account I didn't know existed. He blinked, then raised a brow. Ella, I told you we needed to simplify. The market's shaky. It's all standard. You forged my initials on the approval forms. His smile faltered. I saw the copies, she said. You didn't even try to hide it. William sighed, shaking his head slowly like she was being unreasonable. You don't understand how this works. That's not forgery. It's just efficiency. My name's on everything anyway. That's not what the law says, he scoffed. Don't quote law at me. I've spent years protecting you from the ugly side of this business. Ella took a step forward. No, you spent years using me, hiding behind the image of a happy wife while you stacked everything in your favor. William's jaw clenched. You're twisting this. I gave you my trust, she said, voice rising, and you cashed it in. I gave you more than most women ever get, she laughed bitterly. You gave me silence. You gave me bruises you called accidents. You gave me years I can't get back. William's eyes narrowed. Watch what you say right now. Why? Are you going to ruin me more than you already have? She asked. Because I'm not afraid anymore. He stepped, closer, slow and deliberate. You're making a mistake. I still control everything. The money, the lawyers, the press. You walk away now, you walk away with nothing. Ella met his eyes. Her voice didn't shake. You don't control the truth. William tilted his head, smirking. You think truth matters? I make truth. She walked past him and picked up a manila folder from the entryway table. Not this time. He opened it, quickly flipping through the pages, then stopped. These are... He looked up. Where did you get this? You left a backup drive in your office drawer. Labeled old taxes, she said. It wasn't old taxes. He closed the folder slowly. Ella, we can still fix this. No, William, she said. You can fix it. With a confession and a check big enough to keep me quiet. You'd blackmail me? He asked. A mix of disbelief and fury. She stared him down. No, I'm giving you a choice. He stepped forward. And if I don't? Ella didn't flinch. Then I take everything public. The ZG accounts the mistress, the fake shell companies, the silent partners laundering cash under your name. William's eyes flickered. He wasn't smiling anymore. She turned toward the door. You should start packing. This isn't over, he said. She paused, one hand on the knob. It is for me. And then she left him standing there, exposed and cornered. Behind her, the life he thought he controlled began to fall apart. And in front of her, for the first time in years, something opened up. A future he couldn't touch. A future where she no longer had to survive, because this wasn't escape. This was war. And she had just fired the first shot. The night was still, too still. Ella sat at the kitchen table, the soft glow from the overhead light casting long shadows across the room. She was alone. William had been gone for hours, off somewhere, pretending his business meetings mattered more than the life they had built together. She hadn't heard from him since the confrontation earlier. She wasn't sure whether that was a victory or another lie waiting to break. She ran a hand through her hair and grabbed the glass of wine she had poured earlier, the one that had gone untouched. The amber liquid swirled as she lifted the glass, but it wasn't enough to calm the storm inside her. The rage, the betrayal, it was still there, simmering under her skin. But now it was something else. It was a fire, not a wound. She had spent so many years being his wife, being the good one, the dutiful one. But he had taken everything from her. Her trust, her future, her belief in their love. Now the only thing left was this, the burning need to make him feel every ounce of what he had done to her. She set the glass down and opened her laptop. It was time to take control, time to expose everything. She had started small, gathering evidence over the last few days, piecing together the lies he had built his life on. And now it was all laid out in front of her, his hidden accounts, his illicit deals, the woman he thought he could hide away from her. Every document, every transfer, every name. She knew she could burn him to the ground with it all. But she didn't want just that. She wanted him to feel what she had felt, to feel the betrayal from the inside out, to watch everything crumble while he realized she was the one he should have feared all along. The phone rang, cutting through the silence. She didn't even need to look at the screen to know it was him. The number was always the same. His personal line, the one he never answered if she called. This time, though, she picked up. Ella. William's voice was tired, but there was an edge to it, something cold underneath his words. We need to talk. She didn't say anything at first. She wanted him to hear the silence, to feel the weight of it. Then, finally, her voice broke through. Talk? About what? She asked, her words sharp, the edge of fury slipping through. What exactly is there to talk about? I know you're upset, but you don't get to tell me how to feel anymore, she cut him off, her voice steady but her hands trembling slightly. You don't get to do that after everything. He sighed on the other end, a long, drawn-out sound that spoke of frustration, of a man who thought he was still in control. I'm not going to apologize for what happened. Of course you're not, she whispered, barely audible. You never do. You think you can get away with everything. I don't know what you think is going to happen here, he said. a dangerous calm now in his voice. "But whatever you're planning, you're making a mistake." Her heart skipped a beat, but she didn't let it show. "The only mistake I made was trusting you." There was a long pause, then he spoke again, quieter. "I'm sorry, Ella. I've been busy. I've been under a lot of pressure and I didn't handle things well. But I'm doing what I need to do now." "You've always done what you needed to do, haven't you?" Her words dripped with venom. "You've always done what was best for you, for your empire, for your future. Never once did you care about the woman who stood by you all these years." "I didn't want to hurt you. You know that," he said, and there was a crack in his voice, just enough to make her pause. "But you did," she said, her voice low, dangerous, "and now it's my turn." "Ella, I'm not going to stay here and let you tear me apart," she said, interrupting him. "You took everything from me. My trust, my love, my future. You think you can control everything, your empire, your money, your little secrets, but I have one thing left that you can't touch." "What's that?" he asked, but she could hear the unease creeping into his voice. "The truth," she said, the words coming out with such quiet force that they felt like a punch. "And I'm going to make sure everyone knows it." She ended the call before he could say anything more. Her heart pounded, but now it was different. Now it wasn't fear or pain. It was power. She had all the cards, would change everything. She wouldn't send it just yet. No, that would be too easy. She'd hold it for a while. Let him sweat. Let him think he had won. But she would send it. And when she did, it would take everything he had built and reduce it to dust. Ella stared at the screen, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. For the first time in months, she didn't feel like the woman who had been pushed around, the woman who had always forgiven, always taken the back seat. She wasn't his wife anymore. She wasn't his victim. She was his reckoning. She hit send. Her phone buzzed seconds later, but she didn't look at it. Instead, she stood up, walked to the window, and looked out into the city that had always seemed so distant, so far out of reach. Not anymore. She was free. And no matter how furious William got, no matter how much he tried to claw back, he couldn't stop her now. She had risen. And now she was unstoppable. The ballroom sparkled like a jewel box, crystal chandeliers, white roses, in tall vases, champagne flutes lined with gold. Everything was perfect on the surface. A charity gala for William's latest investment fund. Everyone who mattered was there. Politicians, CEOs, journalists. The press cameras flashed with every step Ella took, her satin black gown trailing behind her like a blade. She was calm, collected, even smiling, but inside she was vibrating with fire. Because tonight wasn't about charity, it was about confrontation. She had planned every detail. When to arrive, who to speak to, what to reveal, and most importantly, how to ruin William without ever raising her voice. Across the room she spotted him. William stood near the bar, drink in hand, charming a group of donors with that rehearsed smile she used to fall for. His arm brushed against the woman beside him, Clara, his assistant, the one he used to deny, the one now wearing a dress too expensive for her title. Ella took a slow breath and walked straight toward them. She heard Clara laugh before she saw her up close, laughing like nothing was wrong, like no one had stolen anything. "William," Ella said sweetly. He turned and the shift in his face was instant, smile to tension in one breath. "Ella," he said carefully, "didn't expect you so early." "I got tired of waiting for the right moment," she said. "And you always did like a crowd." His eyes darted to Clara, then back to Ella. "Now's not the time." "I disagree," she said, glancing at the guests nearby. "In fact, I think now is perfect." Clara stepped back slightly, sensing something was off. "I won't stay long," Ella said, pulling a folded document from her clutch. "I just wanted to drop off a little something you forgot to file." William's jaw tightened. "What is that?" "Proof," she said simply, placing the document into his hand, "of your offshore accounts. The ones Clara here helped you funnel money into, the same ones you claim didn't exist." The group around them went silent. Clara's face went pale. I don't know what this is." "Of course you do," Ella replied, turning toward her. "You signed the wire transfer and the lease on the Miami condo. Your name is all over it." Dear William leaned in close, voice low and sharp. "This isn't the place." "No," Ella said, voice steady, louder now. "This is exactly the place. Because I gave you chance after chance to make it right. I asked you to stop. I begged you to choose me. And you threw me away like I was replaceable." The crowd around them had quieted, ears turned toward the storm. "And now," she continued, eyes locked on William, "now you can explain to all your investors why their money disappeared into thin air. Or should I say, into Clara's designer handbags." William's mask cracked. "You don't know what you're doing." "I know exactly what I'm doing," Ella said. "I'm taking back my voice. And this," she motioned to the ballroom, the guests, the press. "This is my stage." He grabbed her arms suddenly tight. "Don't push me." She didn't even blink. "You already pushed me." Right into my power, she yanked her arm free and stepped back just as the first reporter raised a phone. "Ella, is it true there's fraud involved in the Sanderson Fund?" a woman asked. Ella smiled. "Let's just say," she said, turning toward the crowd, "I've seen what's behind the curtain, and it's not charity gasps." Murmurs. Cameras clicked in rapid fire. William tried to speak to control the narrative, but Ella was already walking away, slow, graceful, leaving a trail of whispered chaos behind her. She didn't look back. Not when security swarmed the room, not when Clara fled through the side exit, not even when William called her name like he still had power over her, because that was the moment everything changed, the moment she wasn't afraid anymore, the moment she became the storm. And tomorrow the world would know exactly who he was, because tonight she didn't just confront him, she exposed him in front of everyone. And it was only the beginning. The ceiling fan hummed above her, slow and rhythmic, like a ticking clock Ella couldn't shut off. She sat on the floor of the guest room, her old room, the one she hadn't entered in years, back pressed against the wall, her knees pulled to her chest. The silence around her wasn't peaceful. It was the kind that made you question what was real and what you'd been told to believe. The manila folder lay open in front of her, its contents scattered like broken glass across the floor. Receipts, flight logs, emails, names, all tied back to William and to her. The documents weren't just evidence of betrayal, they were proof that he had been building something, without her, around her, behind her back. But it wasn't the money that broke her. It was the birth certificate, a child, a boy, born 6 years ago. She stared at the paper, hands trembling. Her name wasn't on it. William's was. And so was Clara's. Her lungs felt too tight to breathe. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. This wasn't just about another woman anymore. This wasn't just about lies or power or control. This was a whole other life, hidden from her, protected, carefully wrapped in the silence of private bank accounts and non-disclosure agreements. She reached for her phone and dialed without thinking. The ring only lasted 2 seconds before it picked up. "Ella," William's voice was sharp, not surprised, just wary. "I'm in a meeting." "Where's the child?" she said. No greeting, no build-up, just truth, dropped like a stone in water. Silence. Then, "What are you talking about?" "I found the records," she said, standing slowly, pacing now. "The school payments, the medical bills, The fake name you used for Clara when you signed the apartment lease? You didn't even bother hiding it well. Another pause. Then came the shift. That cold, tight tone she'd heard too many times before. "That's none of your business," he said, her hand curled into a fist. "You were still married to me when you had him. I don't owe you an explanation. You owe me 10 years of my life," she hissed, "and now I know why you were so eager to keep everything under your name. You weren't just preparing to leave me. You were already gone." He sighed like she was being unreasonable. "Ella, this is complicated." "No, it's not," she snapped. "You built a family while tearing mine apart. You lied to my face while putting a child to bed with hers." There was no denial now, no spin, just silence on the line followed by a calm, flat answer. "He's mine." "And he's none of your concern," her voice cracked. "You married me. You built a life with me. And I protected you," he said coldly, "from truths you weren't strong enough to handle." She nearly dropped the phone. "You don't get to say that." "I gave you a name," he said. "A home. I gave you status. And you threw it away the second you got emotional." She laughed, dry and bitter. "No, I threw it away the second I realized I was living in a house built on lies. You're not thinking clearly." "Oh, I'm thinking just fine," she said. "And I'm done letting you write the rules." "Ella." She hung up. Her chest heaved, her fingers shook, but inside her something shifted. Something stood up. She had taken the humiliation, the affairs, the gaslighting. But this was the line he shouldn't have crossed. A child, a life, a secret family born while she stood beside him, defending his name at every business, dinner, smiling through every empty promise. She walked out of the guest room and down the hall toward his study, the one room he'd always told her not to touch. "Private files," he'd said. "Sensitive deals." She kicked the door open. Inside, everything looked like power. Polished shelves, locked drawers, steel grey furniture. But she saw it differently now. It wasn't power. It was fear. His fear of being found out. His need to control. She opened the drawer beneath the desk. A thumb drive sat, inside, labelled with a date, a year ago. She slipped it into her pocket. He thought she would break. He thought this would crush her. But it did something else. It clarified everything. William didn't just betray her, he replaced her. And now? Now she would become the thing he couldn't silence. Ella stepped into the hallway, heart pounding like thunder in her chest. He had kept a secret child, but she was about to reveal his entire life. The boardroom was colder than she remembered. Not because of the air conditioning. It was the eyes. All of them. Watching her, measuring her, judging her. Ella stood at the end of the long table, dressed in black, hair pinned back, posture steady. She wasn't here to beg. Not anymore. William sat across from her like a king refusing to be dethroned. His fingers tapped lightly against the polished oak table. Calm. Confident. But his eyes twitched, barely, but enough for her to see it. Because he knew. He just didn't know what she would do with it. Ella slid the folder across the table. The lawyers, the investors, the COO, everyone leaned in. "These are copies of every wire transfer made from the Sanderson Trust account," she said, "hidden under a series of shell companies registered offshore, all signed and approved by William, without board approval, without my knowledge, and definitely without legal counsel. William didn't move. Not yet." Ella continued. "Also included are falsified contracts, fake vendor names, and redirected payments that end up in accounts tied to a one Ms. Clara Benson." A low murmur rippled through the room. Clara, who had conveniently taken a leave of absence 2 days ago. "Let me be clear," Ella said, voice steady, calm, sharpened by rage held too long. "This isn't speculation. These are receipts, witnesses, signatures, all legally admissible, and all ready to be submitted to the SEC unless this board acts now. William leaned back in his chair, forcing a smile. This is nonsense. She's bitter. That's all. This is a personal vendetta dressed up as a business crisis. Ella tilted her head. Then you won't mind if I read aloud the voicemail you left Clara 3 nights ago. The one where you told her to shred the original contracts before Ella gets her hands on them. A hush fell over the room. William's mouth opened slightly. He looked toward his lawyer, who had gone pale. I've worked beside you for 10 years, William, Ella said. Built this company with you. Gave up my name, my freedom, my time. And you repaid me with lies, affairs, theft. He stood up suddenly, the chair scraping hard against the floor. You don't get to play victim. You wanted this life, you wanted the spotlight. No, she said. I wanted honesty. I wanted respect. What I got was a prison made of glass and your name written across every wall. The CFO coughed awkwardly, looking down at the documents in front of him. We'll need to bring in external counsel, he muttered. William's voice rose. You believe her over me. I built this company. And now you're burning it, Ella said, arms crossed, but I won't let you drag the rest of us down. He stared at her, the calm finally cracking. You think they'll follow you? I don't think, she said. I know. She turned to the room. The vote is simple. Suspend William's authority pending investigation. Appoint interim leadership. Or I walk out of here with everything I have and take this company's name with me straight to the media. Silence. Then, the chairman, grey-haired, steady, spoke. All in favour of the motion. One by one, hands rose. Even William's lawyer didn't move. The chairman looked at her. Ella, we'll discuss transition protocol after this session. She nodded once. Thank you. William's voice broke through the silence like a whip. You're going to regret this. Ella turned, met his eyes with steel. I already regretted staying quiet. He took a step toward her. You think this makes you powerful? You're nothing without me, she smiled. Then why are you shaking? He froze, and for the first time she saw it clearly. His fear. Not of her evidence or her voice, but of her becoming something he could no longer control. She stepped closer, leaned in just enough for only him to hear. I built my strength while you built your secrets. You thought I was weak because I stayed. But you forgot the most dangerous thing about quiet women. He didn't respond. She whispered the last words like a vow. We hear everything. And we. Remember then, she turned and walked out of the boardroom, not broken, not beaten, but rising. And behind her, William's empire, built on lies, ego, and betrayal, began to crack. The morning was supposed to be quiet, the kind where coffee was shared in silence, and the headlines were ignored. But Ella sat alone at the breakfast table, her cup untouched, the front page of the newspaper staring back at her with bold black letters. Sanderson, Empire under federal review. Whistleblower exposes. Financial fraud. Her name wasn't printed, not yet, but she knew it was only a matter of time. The kitchen clock ticked louder than usual. Every second tightened the knot in her stomach. She had done it, brought William down, shattered the walls he had built around his power. But this wasn't the victory she imagined. A car pulled into the driveway. Ella stood, heart hammering. She knew who it was before she looked. The door opened fast, hard. And then came the voice. What the hell did you do? Her sister Mara stormed into the room, face flushed, eyes blazing. She held her phone in one hand and fury in the other. You leaked it, Mara spat. You really did it. You turned him in. Ella didn't speak right away. She folded the paper, set it aside, and looked at her sister like she was seeing her for the first time. I told you, Ella said. If he didn't stop, I would. Mara slammed her phone on the counter. Do you realize what you've done to this family? Mom is getting calls from everyone. Dad's name is being dragged through the mud. We're a joke now. No, Ella said calmly. William is the joke. I just stopped laughing. Mara stared at her, mouth open. You could have handled it privately. He didn't deserve privacy, Ella said. He forged my signature. He stole from investors. He had a son behind my back. That doesn't mean you destroy your own blood, Mara shouted. He's still your husband. Ella stepped forward, voice rising. He stopped being my husband the moment he made me invisible. He replaced me while I was still cooking his dinners. Mara's expression twisted. You think you're brave? You think this is justice? I think it's survival, Ella said. I stayed silent for too long. I smiled when he lied. I covered for him when I knew better. I let him use my name as a shield. Tears welled in Mara's eyes. We've lost everything. The charities, the family dinners, the legacy. No, Ella said. We lost the illusion. And maybe that's exactly what we needed. Mara's voice cracked. Mum said she won't speak to you. Not after this. She says you humiliated us. Ella looked down at the floor. That one hurt more than she wanted to admit. Then she should ask herself why she raised daughters to protect men who don't protect us. Mara was silent. You always told me to keep the peace, Ella continued, to let it go. To think long-term. But you never once asked me if I was okay. You never looked past the dresses and dinner parties and saw what was underneath. I didn't know, Mara whispered. Ella's voice softened. I didn't want you to. I wanted someone to believe the version of me I was pretending to be. They stood in silence, the truth settling between them like dust. Then came a smaller voice from the hallway. Mom? Ella turned. It was Ava, their daughter. 10 years old, wide-eyed, holding a school binder to her chest. Ella swallowed the lump in her throat. Hey, baby. Ava stepped in. Is it true? What they said on the news? Ella knelt down, heart cracking in half. Some of it, yes. Did Dad lie? Ella looked up at Mara, who turned away. She turned back to her daughter. He made mistakes. Big ones. And I tried to fix them quietly. But some things need to be said out loud. Ava's voice was small. Are we going to be okay? Ella pulled her into a hug. Yes, because we're telling the truth now. Mara blinked fast, looking down. I didn't come here to fight. I know, Ella said. You came here because you're scared. So am I. She stood slowly. But fear doesn't keep me quiet anymore. Mara picked up her phone, stared at it. They'll ask questions. They'll dig. Let them, Ella said. There's nothing left to hide. Mara walked toward the door but paused. He'll come after you. Ella nodded. Then he'll see who I've become. Mara hesitated, then gave a soft nod and walked out. Ella turned back to Ava and kissed her forehead. Go get your shoes, baby. I'll drive you today. As the door shut behind her daughter, Ella stood alone in the kitchen again. The coffee had gone cold, but she hadn't. She walked over to the sink and dumped the cup. Behind her, the empire had fallen. Ahead of her, a new life waited to be built. One truth at a time. The wind whipped through the courthouse steps as Ella stood still, the verdict echoing in her ears like a distant drumbeat. It was done. William had lost. His accounts frozen, his reputation gutted, his name dragged through every headline. The empire he built on her back had fallen, and she hadn't flinched. She walked down the stone steps slowly, one hand clutching the thin folder of official papers that now gave her full control of the remaining assets. Every footstep clicked with purpose. Her heels didn't wobble anymore, her voice didn't shake, and the fear that used to sit heavy in her chest. Gone. Across the courtyard, reporters waited, cameras ready. She knew they'd come. They always came when blood was in the water. but she wasn't here to bleed. She was here to rise. She kept walking, past the crowd, past the questions, straight to the black car waiting at the curb. Inside, Adrian waited, the man who saw her long before William ever did, the man who stayed in the shadows when she asked, but who never stopped watching over her. He opened the door without a word. She slid in beside him, exhaling for the first time in hours. "You did it," he said quietly. Ella didn't smile. Not yet. "I did what I had to." Adrian nodded. "You still breathing?" "Barely," she whispered, her fingers tightening around the folder. "But it's mine now." Everything he thought I wouldn't survive without. He was wrong. They sat in silence for a moment, the kind of silence that came after a war. Not peace exactly, but space. Air. Then Adrian reached for her hand. "Do you regret any of it?" he asked. Ella looked at him. Her eyes were tired but sharp. "I regret waiting so long." The car pulled into traffic. William had tried to silence her, gaslight her, erase her from the story. He thought betrayal was a wound she'd never recover from, but what he didn't count on was her turning that wound into a weapon. She pulled out her phone, scrolling past the emails and alerts, stopping at the message from her lawyer. All transitions complete. He has no legal claim to anything else. It still didn't feel real, not the freedom, not the end of it. She turned to Adrian. "Do you think I'm cruel?" He studied her. "I think you've been kind for too long." What you did wasn't cruelty. It was correction. She nodded slowly. He added, "And no one corrects power like a woman who's been burned." Ella let that settle. Then her phone buzzed again. This time it was her mother. She hesitated before answering. "Hi," she said softly. There was a pause on the other end. "I saw the news," her mother said, voice clipped. "You made quite a spectacle." Ella blinked hard. "It wasn't for spectacle." "No?" her mother said. "Then why do it in public? Why humiliate the father of your child on camera?" Ella's voice stayed calm. "Because he humiliated me in silence for years. And I let him. I thought protecting the family meant protecting the man destroying it." A pause. "You've changed," her mother said. "I've reclaimed," Ella replied. There was another pause. Then, "The board from the hospital foundation called. They're asking if your name should stay on the donor wing." Ella took a deep breath. "Tell them to leave it. But change the plaque. It was never his name that funded it." She hung up without waiting for a reply. Adrian raised an eyebrow. "You okay?" She nodded. "She'll come around. Or she won't. Either way, I'm not begging anyone to understand me anymore." He smiled. "That's the woman I remember." They pulled up outside her new office building, smaller than the mansion, less gold, less gloss. But it was hers, every inch of it. Ella stepped out of the car and into the wind. Her phone buzzed again. A message from William. "You won." "Happy now?" She stared at it, typed back. "No, but I'm free." That's better. She hit send and didn't look back, because this wasn't a happy ending. This was a beginning. One she built with scars instead of fairy tales, and no one could ruin her again. Not this time. Not ever.